I know Reddit loves messy family drama, but I wish my life were still boring enough to scroll through other people's problems instead of typing this out in some anonymous hotel lounge while my brand new ex-wife is locked in a police interview room downstairs. I guess the honeymoon suite turned into a holding cell once the truth came out. And honestly, I'm savoring the swap. She thought a week in the Maldives would wash away a 6-year lie. She should have chosen a destination without cell service. Back up half a decade. Everyone told Aaron and me we were disgustingly in love. We finished each other's sentences, shared playlists, laughed at jokes that made our friends groan. When she surprised me with a positive pregnancy test 3 months after the wedding, I ugly cried in the kitchen until the dog got nervous and hid under the table. We started nightly name debates, sketched nursery layouts on napkins, and fought playful wars over which kids' movies were essential parenting canon. 7 months later, the world flipped. Aaron's water broke early. Ambulance, chaos, blood, anesthesiologists shouting through masks. I never heard a baby cry. A gray bundle was wheeled past me while a nurse whispered, "I'm so sorry." My brain stopped recording. When Erin woke up, her eyes were glassy. "Placental abruption," she croaked. "Our daughter didn't make it." I held her trembling hand in that sterile room and promised we'd try again when we were ready. She sobbed into my chest, and I hated fate for making that promise necessary. We cremated an empty bundle because the hospital said the remains were non-viable tissue. I kept the little urn on the mantel anyway. It felt wrong to flush memories down a medical waste chute. Friends tiptoed around us, dropping sympathy casseroles like landmines, then scuttling away. I went to therapy, pulled Erin along when she resisted, signed us up for a grief group where we sat in folding chairs listening to stories that made ours seem almost merciful. Trying again never happened. Erin developed panic attacks whenever the topic surfaced. She got an IUD and claimed sex felt safer without the shadow of childbirth. I deferred, figuring time would soften the edges. Meanwhile, her sister Lynn and Lynn's husband Eric announced they couldn't conceive. Cue obligatory tears, fertility treatments, GoFundMe updates, the whole heartbreaking parade. Erin doted on her sister, spending weekends helping them decorate a nursery for manifestation, whatever that meant. Fast forward to last month. Erin booked a fancy honeymoon redo for our 6-year anniversary because our original budget trip had been overshadowed by baby grief. All-inclusive resort, overwater bungalow, private plunge pool. I packed swimsuits and a surprise necklace. She packed guilt. The first night we drank too many rum punches under a bleeding sunset. Back in the room, she started crying harder than the surf. At first I thought it was drunken sentimentality. Then she dropped a sentence that shattered gravity. "Our daughter isn't dead." I thought I misheard. She repeated it, voice raw. According to her confession, the baby had been born healthy, tiny but screaming. Erin panicked. She claimed postpartum terror hit her like a train. All she could think about was her sister's infertility and her own fear of motherhood. From the operating table, she begged Lynn, present as her emergency contact because I'd been stuck signing insurance forms, to save the baby. Lynn, equally desperate, agreed. They convinced hospital staff to list the infant as stillborn, forged my signature on the discharge papers, and walked out with my living daughter. For 6 years, my daughter, Hazel, they named her, grew up 3 hours away, calling Lynn Mommy and Eric Dad. I'd been to their house dozens of times, watched Hazel wobble around in footy pajamas, taught her to high-five at Thanksgiving, let her comb my hair while we streamed movies on family nights. Everyone joked she and I had the same smile. No wonder. She is my genetic mirror. Erin said the secret crushed her daily. Therapy failed, medication numbed her, but the guilt metastasized. She planned to confess on the trip, accept my rage and hope against logic that love would outlast betrayal. She even fantasized we might co-parent in some twisted modern family arrangement. That was the moment I knew forgiveness was impossible. Love can't outlast a lie this total. It mutates into something else, something sharp. I left the room before I did something violent. I walked the moonlit boardwalk until my breathing steadied, then returned and asked for every detail. She talked for hours. I memorized names, dates, legal documents she'd forged, the nurse's current address, the lawyer's retainer receipts, every thread. When her eyes finally closed near dawn, I slipped her phone from the nightstand and took photos of incriminating messages with Lynn. Years of cover-up in neat text bubbles. Hazel called me Auntie Rin again, LOL. Delete this chat. I spent the second day contacting a friend back home who's a family law attorney. Time difference be damned, he answered. I uploaded the screenshots, filled him in, asked what leverage existed. He nearly choked on his coffee. Kidnapping, fraud, falsified medical records, adoption conspiracy. The list ran long. Statute of limitations? Not for kidnapping a minor whose biological parent was deceived. We mapped a battle plan. Emergency petition for paternity. Injunction to prevent Hazel leaving the state. Criminal referrals. That evening, I pretended nothing had changed. I toasted new beginnings while finalizing hers. On the flight home, I told Erin my stomach hurt and sat in a different row. At baggage claim, I informed her I'd file for divorce in the morning. She dissolved into hysterics, attracting security. I dialed my lawyer. Within 48 hours, a judge signed an order for immediate DNA testing of Hazel, Lynn, and me. Because Lynn lived nearby, sheriff's deputies served papers at breakfast. Erin was at her sister's table when it happened. Poetic timing. They protested, but refusal equals contempt. Swabs happened, labs rushed. Q result, 99.9999% probability. I'm Hazel's biological father. The court clerk's voice wavered, delivering the percentage. I guess even bureaucracy has emotions. My attorney moved fast. Emergency custody pending full hearing, citing imminent risk of flight. The judge granted it. Deputies escorted Hazel to a child advocate who drove her to my place, her real dad's home, while social workers supervised. The look on Hazel's face when I opened the door nearly ripped me in half. She recognized me, smiled, went to hug, then hesitated at the unfamiliar setting. I knelt and told her Mommy and Daddy asked me to babysit for a while. She accepted, eager to see my dog. Small mercies. While I made grilled cheese, detectives interviewed Erin and Lynn. The cooperating nurse, fearing prison, flipped immediately, handing over falsified charts and email chains. The hospital launched internal investigations. Heads rolled. Internet search history taught me that family courts lean toward the child's stability, but kidnapping trumps settled routine. My lawyer crafted a precision strike. Prove Lynn and Erin conspired to permanently deprive me of parental rights. Prove ongoing deception. Prove willingness to flee. We subpoenaed phone GPS data showing a scrapped plan to move Hazel to Canada the night before DNA results. That sealed it. Full physical and legal custody transferred to me within 3 weeks. Lynn and Eric get supervised visitation if Hazel requests it when she's older. Revenge, however, is more than custody. It's ensuring consequences fit each betrayal vector. Erin wanted forgiveness. She got indictments. She's charged with kidnapping, fraud, obstruction, and falsifying records. Minimum guideline, 8 years. Lynn faces the same. Eric, though ignorant of the scheme until after the fact, so he claims, pleaded out to accessory after learning, but not reporting. The nurse lost her license and cut a deal for probation in exchange for testimony. The adoption lawyer is being disbarred. Financially, I'm gutting them. Civil suit for emotional distress and punitive damages. We estimate 7 figures. Erin's inheritance from her late father is in play because she commingled funds for the forged adoption. Lynn's house is mortgaged to the hilt funding IVF that never worked. My lien will finish the job. Eric negotiated to keep his retirement if he sells their vacation cabin for my daughter's college trust. I agreed, because Hazel's future matters more than scorched earth. The part everyone on Reddit always asks, how's Hazel coping? Better than expected. Kids absorb truth differently. A child psychologist advised gradual revelation. For now, she knows Auntie Rin is going somewhere to fix big mistakes, and that I'm her dad, and always was, even if grown-ups were confused. She likes having her own room painted lime green and insists the dog sleep on her feet. Nightmares spike sometimes. She wakes shouting, "Mom!" and looks startled when I answer. We're working through it. I saved Erin's voicemail meltdown from jail. 30 minutes of crying, apologies, begging me to let her talk to Hazel. I saved it for Hazel's 18th birthday, not out of cruelty, but clarity. She deserves unfiltered evidence of choices made long before she could walk. Some friends say my revenge is too harsh, that trauma drove Erin to irrational decisions. I remind them she maintained the lie for 6 years, smiling as I wept beside that urn. Trauma explains irrational acts. It doesn't excuse a conspiracy sustained by daily deceit. Others worry Hazel losing 2 maternal figures at once is damaging. Maybe. But kids also need truthful foundations. Better a clean fracture than a house of cards that collapses later. Speaking of cards, the domino run isn't finished. The hospital's risk management team offered a quiet settlement. I declined. I want depositions, sworn testimonies, and headlines. Not for money. I'll donate punitive damages to a child welfare charity, but because sunlight disinfects. Let every medical resident learn why paperwork exists and why parents sign forms. I kept the urn on the mantle. It reminds me how easily reality can be faked with enough authority and paperwork. I plan to open it with Hazel when she's older, show her what her ashes really are, medical gauze and surgical scraps, then hand her the empty ceramic to smash if she chooses. A symbolic cremation of deceit. People also ask whether I'll ever date again. Reddit loves a rebound. Right now, every thought centers on Hazel's therapy sessions, school enrollment, and teaching her to ride a bike by June. Romance feels like a language from a past life, but I'm not closing the book. If I ever let someone in, I'll tell them this story first. If they flinch, they're gone. Erin's trial begins in September. The prosecutor invited me to give a victim impact statement. I drafted it last night. It ends with a sentence I can't wait to read aloud. My forgiveness is reserved for those who earn it. You earned every consequence instead. Some might call that petty. I call it balance. Hazel asked yesterday whether her middle name means anything. It's Dawn. I told her dawn is when night ends and everything is possible. She twirled, arms outstretched, chanting "possible, possible," until she got dizzy and fell into the grass, laughing. In that moment, I realized revenge is also about reclaiming joy that was stolen. Watching her giggle under an ordinary afternoon sun felt like the world finally rotated the right direction. Tomorrow we visit the zoo. She wants to see the red pandas. Erin always hated zoos. said cages were cruel. Funny thing, she'll be in one soon. Circular irony, striped in orange jumpsuits instead of fur. I'm not naive. Years of custody hearings, therapy bills, and school gossip await. Hazel might hate me at 13, idolize Lynn at 15, resent the media circus. I'll be steady. I'll answer every question. The truth, even when messy, is an anchor. Maybe someday, Hazel will post her own Reddit story about a dad who burned down half the family tree to bring her home. I hope by then she understands scorched earth is sometimes the only way to plant something healthy. Until then, I'm just her father, learning bedtime braids from YouTube, packing dinosaur-shaped sandwiches, and fighting like hell in courtrooms so she never doubts who wanted her. If you made it this far, thanks for reading. I wrote this not for praise, but as a timestamp. A year ago, I was mourning a child I thought was dust. Tonight, she's asleep down the hall, clutching a glow-in-the-dark plushie. The house smells like burnt popcorn because we tried to make movie night special, and I forgot how fast the cheap kernels go from silent to inferno. Hazel laughed at my panicked flailing and sprayed the smoke detector with her new water gun, declaring it firefighter training. I let her giggle herself breathless, feeling the sound settle in the walls like fresh paint. When I tucked her in, she whispered, "Love you, Dad," like she'd been saying it her whole life. Maybe somewhere inside she has. I kissed her forehead and promised to keep her safe, truthfully this time. I intend to keep that promise with every breath I have left. People keep asking whether the courts will go easy on Erin because she claims postpartum psychosis. I'm prepared for that pitch. My lawyer obtained her therapy records, standard anxiety, no psychosis diagnosis, and certainly no note that says kidnap a child. He also pulled bank statements showing Erin and Lynn opened a joint fund labeled Baby Acorn 2 weeks before delivery. Panic doesn't open checking accounts. Conspiracies do. Eric, Lynn's husband, reached out through counsel begging for a meeting. I agreed, mostly to see how deep his hands were in the mud. Over coffee, he admitted he learned the truth a year in when their insurance flagged conflicting vaccination records. He stayed silent because he'd already bonded with Hazel and feared losing her. I told him fear explains cowardice, not complicity. He cried, said he'd testify. I told him to start by signing away parental rights. 2 days later, he did. Small mercy rewarded. The media sniffed out the story after the first arraignment. Reporters swarmed my lawn with cameras angled like rifles. Hazel thought they were filming a parade. I told her we're practicing privacy games. We wave from behind curtains, then retreat to the fort we built out of couch cushions. She laughs at the absurdity. I focus on how quickly laughter became normal here. Therapy gave us a nightly ritual. We each say one hard truth and one bright hope. Tonight hers was, "I miss Auntie Rin, but I like that Dad makes pancakes." Mine was, "I'm scared of trial, but I love hearing you sing in the shower." We high-five on Truth Team, and the day feels lighter. Discovery unearthed a disgusting twist. Lynn shopped our story to a streaming service before anyone was charged, pitching herself as a tragic heroine raising her sister's baby. The email thread, entered as Exhibit 42, ended with Erin replying, "We deserve our happy ending." The judge nearly spat out his water when that line hit the screen. Some relatives think I'm overreacting, that the lie was born of grief. I sent them scans of the forged consent forms with my faked signature. The silence since has been refreshing. Hazel's school counselor advised a class meeting to curb playground rumors. I stood in front of 27-year-olds and said, "Sometimes adults make big mistakes, but helpers fix them." They nodded, more interested in the cupcakes I brought. One kid asked if Hazel was adopted. I said, Hazel was always my family. We just had to find our way home. Clear, simple, done. Revenge isn't a bonfire you sit beside for heat. It's a controlled burn to clear diseased brush. Once the flames are out, you plant. So I enrolled in a parenting course at the community center, started a college fund using part of the civil settlement advance, and scheduled Hazel's first riding lesson because she's obsessed with horses. Building feels better than burning, but the ground had to be scorched first. A few nights ago, Hazel discovered my old guitar in the closet. Her fingers buzzed against the strings until a single clean note rang out. She grinned like she'd invented sound. That note echoed through the house that once held an urn pretending to contain her ashes. Music where there was mourning. That feels like true revenge. Aaron's next hearing is in 3 weeks. The prosecutor asked if I'll give a victim impact statement. I already wrote it. It ends with, "Your remorse arrived years too late. My daughter arrived exactly on time." I practiced saying it without trembling. It felt good. Sometimes bitterness taps my shoulder at night, whispers that I lost 7 birthdays. Then Hazel yells from her room, "Dad, monsters!" And I jog down the hall with a flashlight, banish shadows, tuck her in. In those moments past and future collapse into present duty, and bitterness wanders off unmet. People online speculate about movie rights. If they happen, every cent will go to organizations fighting parental kidnapping. That's the final chess move, turning their attempted cash grab into a lifeline for others. Tomorrow, Hazel and I will collect 3 river stones and paint them pink, blue, and green, her code for happy, sad, and brave. We'll place them in the garden so flowers can grow around the colors. She calls it planting feelings. Works for me. That's the update, Reddit. Scorched earth, fresh seeds, steady hands. More to come, but for tonight, I'm signing off to help my daughter practice guitar until the only thing ringing in this house is hope. She strums boldly, declaring every chord a brand new sunrise.